Lucy Gorman was considered a troublesome character in Victoria around the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. It is thought she came originally from Launceston in Tasmania. She arrived in Bendigo, Victoria, in March 1894, and 2 months later was charged with vagrancy, having made her living there by prostitution. She was given 3 days to leave the district to avoid being jailed. In August 1898 she was in Melbourne, when on the night of the 28th she was discovered by Constable Berkery smashing windows in Exhibition Street. He arrested her on a charge of vagrancy. When he did so, Lucy produced a strong pocket knife and stabbed him 3 times in the leg. In court, Lucy defiantly claimed the policeman had choked and stood on her, which prompted her actions. Declared to be a hopeless case and a nuisance to society, she was sent to jail for 12 months for vagrancy, and concurrently 2 months for the assault on the constable. In 1900, Lucy married Otto Emanuel Carlson, but the marriage appears to have floundered rather quickly. Around 1901, she began living with George Roy, and stayed with him until about 2 weeks before Christmas 1914, when she left him for another man. Although she was sometimes known as Lucy Carlson, she usually went by the name Gorman. She paid a visit to Launceston in December 1909 and was arrested for drunkenness, and as in Bendigo, promised to leave the city if discharged. This was agreed, but she was arrested again the same night, and this time was fined 5 shillings. Lucy was known to police as a prostitute and a heavy drinker. In 1914, it is believed she was 38 years old. Around October 1914, Lucy had moved from a small street off Spring Street in Melbourne into 12 Johnson Street, Richmond. The address was in a poor area. The press went so far as to declare it a slum. With Cochrane's tannery on one side, and number 6 was on the other side where a family named O'Connor lived, and behind was a vacant lot. The small property was a brick cottage that had 5 main rooms, bathroom and pantry. Just after Christmas, Lucy's fox terrier, which was tied up in the backyard, began making a fuss, yelping and wailing for a few days. Her pet cockatoo was screeching from the back porch of the house as well. Miss Alice O'Connor thought the dog was being neglected. The O'Connors had not seen Lucy since about 2 p.m. on Christmas Eve, and assumed she had gone on holiday, leaving her pets unprovided for. Therefore, shortly before 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the 31st of December 1914, she went next door to give the dog some water to drink, and to check on the parrot. The dog was emaciated, and the bird seemed weak. Neither had food or water. In a second cage, another little parrot lay dead. While giving the distressed dog a drink, Alice noticed the door was open, so she knocked, and not receiving any answer, stepped inside to investigate. In the first 4 rooms Alice discovered nothing, but when she walked into the last room, which was the bedroom, she stumbled upon the gruesome sight of Lucy Gorman's body, laying face down in a pool of blood, which had flowed from a large wound on the back of her head, laying between the bed and the wardrobe. Alice ran back home and alerted her brother Alfred to what she had found. Alfred went into the house to confirm what his sister reported, as nobody had heard any disturbance over the past week, except for the cries of the starving animals. Then he dashed off to fetch the police, discovering Constable Burns in nearby Victoria Street, and reporting the discovery to him. Lucy had been beaten to death, but from the position in which her body was found, it was thought death had not been instantaneous. Her chin had caught on the edge of a chair, with one arm draped over the chair, and the other fallen by her side. It was assumed she had wandered about the house in a stupor, slowly bleeding to death before collapsing there. She was dressed in only a brown petticoat. Lucy's fair hair was matted with blood, and her face smeared with blood. Bruises covered her arms and legs, indicating she had been punched and kicked. Her shoulders were blackened by them. Only the 2 front rooms and the kitchen were furnished, the other 2 rooms being used for storing lengths of wood. The floors were covered with rags and littered with empty beer bottles. The bedroom contained a double bed, dressing table, wardrobe, and washstand. The walls were decorated with pictures, enlarged photographs, and framed Christmas supplements. The mattress, pillows, and bedclothes were in a heap, covered in blood. A small bamboo table had been tossed on top of the bedding. More blood was smeared on furniture, indicating that the attack had taken place there. A dozen beer bottles were scattered about the room. In the sitting room there was a sofa and easy chairs, and a piano with sheets of ragtime music upon it. On the sideboard and mantel were cheap ornaments and fancy drinking glasses. The room was not disturbed, as a small table with a wilting fern on it had not been upended, except that blood was smeared on the sofa and both chairs. More pictures were hung on the walls, including one of King George V and a large horseshoe in the colours of the Allies in the Great War, then just recently begun in Europe. In the kitchen were some cups and plates from a meal waiting to be washed, and a gramophone on the dining table. On a chair another of Lucy's pets, a sleek black cat, with a ribbon hung with jingle bells around its neck, was curled up sleeping. In a room built onto the back of the house was a jinker, a type of carriage. There had been a pony on the property, but that had not been seen since Christmas. A man had been seen there by the O'Connors in the week before Christmas, but he too had vanished. The dead woman had never attempted to make the family's acquaintance, and they hadn't bothered with her either. Death was determined to have been caused by a fractured skull. Lucy had been known to fall when intoxicated, and had hurt herself before, but the severity of the injury ruled out an accidental blow. The murder could have been committed with one of the 81 empty beer bottles laying about the house, but none were found to be blood-stained. Police concluded that a drunken orgy had taken place, and that Lucy may have been killed during the spree. A charwoman named Mary Williams had seen Lucy on the 28th of December, when she was suffering the after-effects of a drinking bout. Lucy was in bed with the blinds down, and though the room was dark, she could see the room was in disorder. Mary asked about a blood-stained pillow at the foot of the bed, but Lucy said it was stained with soot. She asked the woman to go away after she had been given a drink of water, but asked for another woman to visit her. The other woman, however, did not call on Lucy. It had been thought the attack took place on the night of the 28th or the 29th, and that death took place 24 hours later, but Mary's evidence indicates the 27th of December as the most likely time, and that Lucy had died on the 28th. Police began the task of locating people known to have frequented the house and interviewing them. Quickly, a 36-year-old brass moulder named James Jarvis became the focus of attention. Jarvis was undersized and of a youthful appearance. He had known Lucy for 4 or 5 years, and had lived with Lucy, but stated he left Johnson Street on the 23rd of December after a quarrel with another man. That man was Francis Cadzow, who had come to take the pony from the property and had taken the animal to the country, and did not return to Melbourne until the 2nd of January. He denied that any argument had occurred. Cadzow had known Lucy for about 4 months, and had gone to collect the pony as arranged with her, but an inebriated Jarvis said she had changed her mind, so he left, and returned the next day to take it. Jarvis changed his story, and admitted he was with Lucy drinking between the 19th and 26th of December, giving her some brandy and a cup of water when she felt ill on Boxing Day. On the 4th of January, Jarvis was charged with vagrancy. Lucy had been buried the day before. At an inquest held on the 9th of January at the morgue, Jarvis was identified by George Roy as the man whom Lucy had left him for a couple of weeks before Christmas. A small dark stain had been found on Jarvis's coat, which he claimed was paint. The government analyst examined it and found it was blood. He was then asked about a shirt he had been wearing, but which he had exchanged at a hotel in Little Lonsdale Street, which had been blood-stained. He said that it had been from a blood nose. Alice O'Connor stated that the last time she saw Jarvis at the house was about 7:30 p.m. on Christmas Eve, when she saw him leaving. A friend named Myrtle Thompson visited Lucy on the 20th of December and told her a man she called Tall Jimmy was coming over to see her. Tall Jimmy was the nickname of Francis Cadzow. She asked, "Are you going to have Tall Jimmy or Little Jimmy?" referring to James Jarvis. Lucy replied, "Don't say anything before Little Jimmy, or he'll punch me as he did last night." When Myrtle asked why she let a strange man knock her about like that, Lucy said she was joking. Based upon Mary Williams' evidence, Lucy had already been injured on the 28th of December, maybe up to a day before, and that Jarvis admitted being at the house on the 26th of December, and that he had made contradictory statements. Jarvis was committed to stand trial for murder. That trial never took place. On the 19th of February it was decided that though Jarvis appeared guilty, there was in reality little actual evidence to prove he had been responsible for the death of Lucy Gorman, and the prosecution was abandoned. The murder of Lucy Gorman remains unsolved to this day.